Okay guys, after about a 1 week hiatus, it's back with This Week in Appalachian History, which brings me to my first point, which is that we are having to make some changes here. Me and Melody, thank goodness, we've gotten blessed with a major opportunity to write a book called, tentatively anyway, Legends and Lore of Southwest Virginia, which is a companion book to my old book, Legends and Lore of East Tennessee. And it's been a real blessing, but my goodness, it takes a lot of time and energy to write a book. So it's kind of taken time away from me being able to do these. So instead of doing these on a weekly basis, I'm switching it to a monthly basis. So it'll be this month in Appalachian history. So I'm going to finish up September this week, but I did want to start off with a few announcements too. Like I do have a couple of donors. One was Randy and Dena Key, and man, they are just awesome people. Met them in Galax. They own the Primitive Peddler, which I highly recommend that you check out when you're down there. I know Melody went back in it, I think twice in the same day to buy some stuff. It was just that good, just absolutely a great store, and even better people that run it. So Randy and Deanna, it means the world to us that you support our show and watch us. And gosh, that was just a great day. Just one of the things we love is meeting people. And if you see us out in public, don't hesitate to come up and talk to us, because I just absolutely made our day, made our whole trip. So again, thank you, Randy and Dena Key. Loved it. Also had some postcards to share with you guys. This is awesome because some people started to send these in, and this one's from Barbara Aubrey. I got 4 from her. First one, and I hope you can see this. Let me adjust my camera, make sure you can. And that is, this one has Salt Lake City, Utah in it. And hopefully you can see that. That is Salt Lake City, Utah, a place I've not been blessed with being able to see yet. I got some more from that. This is Ogden. And you can see just absolutely gorgeous. She talks about that there's quite a big cowboy culture there, and here's some more gorgeous scenery. Some of the Rockies. And again, I hope to be blessed with seeing those sometime in my life. And here's the Antelope Island in Salt Lake City. And she says, very few antelope there, but actually hundreds of bison, so not aptly named. The deer and the antelope play. But I just love getting postcards and stuff like that. It's just really cool to see and hear from folks from other parts of the country and around the world, for that matter. It just makes my day. So, and I know Melody loves that too, so we very much enjoyed getting that. Jumping into the history segment. Backing up, because you can't skip this story. September 13th, the story of Murderous Mary dates back to 1916, and that's the day. Let me start back with the backstory. It happened in 1916, right? There was something called the Sparks World Famous Shows Circus, and that came through the area and ended up in Kingsport, Tennessee. And that's where things go awry. There was a young guy who basically I'd call him a journeyman, who was put in charge of keeping an elephant named Mary. She was the star of the show, and he was put in charge of keeping her, taking care of it. And here's this guy's background. He had been working in Norton, Virginia as a bellhop, so he grabs this job, and 2 days later he's brought into a tragedy, unfortunately. So he's given the job of taking care of Mary, the elephant. And as the story goes, Mary was between performances, and they're walking her back to her cage, I guess, and she spots a watermelon rind, and she goes over there and starts pulling, and this thing's massive. I mean, Mary was a humongous elephant, so you can imagine this poor old guy, overwhelmed, no real training or anything else, getting pulled by this elephant, losing control. Well, the one thing he had to keep her in line was a bull hook, and those things are pretty primitive things. They got that sharp edge on the end, and you see people try to control elephants with those. So he whacked Mary in the head, and this didn't go over well. So she attacks him, and let me stop right here. If you got a weak stomach or it's very sensitive, I'm going to let you pause and skip forward a couple of minutes on this one, because you don't want to hear this story, you don't want to see this picture. But so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'll get into the story now. So if you stuck around for this, God bless you. Mary attacks this young man. His name was Red Eldridge, and she basically stomps his head in, and from some accounts his head was stomped as flat as a pancake. So he was really brutalized. And unfortunately, not only did this tragedy occur, but it occurred in front of a bunch of witnesses. And they become bloodthirsty. They wanted some vengeance on this elephant. So a blacksmith comes up with a rifle and shoots Mary 5 times, and it basically just bounces right off of her, because it's just not, you can't really penetrate an elephant with a rifle, at least not a low caliber one. So the owner of the circus puts her away and tries to debate what to do, and there's just a growing groundswell of public sentiment that they want this thing put to death. And so he finally relents and gives into it. Well, so they decide, how are we going to kill this thing? And it is decided that they'll take it down to Irwin, Tennessee. There's a railroad yard, the old Clinchfield Railroad. And so they haul Mary down there, and it becomes a great spectacle. Word goes around that they're going to be hanging this elephant from a giant derrick. And so it becomes a carnival, or circus, I guess. Perfect name, since it's circus-like atmosphere. And a crowd of people come to watch this big show. So they strap Mary into this thing, going to hang her, and they pull it up, and what do you know, the first time they pull her up, the chain breaks. She falls to the ground and makes out a terrible noise, and panic goes through these people. They're leaving, fleeing left and right, kids running and screaming and howling, because this humongous elephant who has murdered somebody is on the loose. But I don't know how you describe this. I was going to say sadly, but maybe not. I don't know how you describe it, but Mary broke her hip, and so she wasn't able to get around and do too much damage at that point. So they strap her back in again, and this time they're successful. They hang her up, and the picture shows that she is hung to death. And it's just a terrible, terrible, horrible story all the way around. And it just, unfortunately for this Red Eldridge, he's just thrown into a job. He's way in over his head. He has no idea what he's doing. And supposedly, a follow-up examination of Mary after she's dead shows that she had a tooth injury. And the speculation is that Red Eldridge, when he hit that bull hook, hit her in her sensitive tooth and made her snap. But just everything about it, just a terrible situation. I know a lot of people are sympathetic for Mary, which certainly I would be too. Just, animal's going to be an animal, and, we can talk about that all day long, but I can't help but feel sorry for this dude, man. Here's this guy trying to make a living for himself, just getting a job, and then next thing you know, he gets his head stomped flat. I don't know that that's a very good ending for his story, so I like to show a little sympathy for him. Seems like every time I posted this story, and I put it in my book. If you haven't got that book, Legends and Lore of East Tennessee, which I mentioned earlier, every time I posted this story anywhere, it's always that people hate this guy, this Red Eldridge guy, and they're very sympathetic to the elephant. And I'm like, I just don't get that. Here's this guy, he didn't know what he's doing. He's in over his head, and he didn't know what he's doing. Yeah, unfortunately, an elephant's going to be an elephant, but he deserved a better ending than what he got to. So, moving right along, happier story. September 15th, 1903. Roy Acuff was born in Maynardville, Tennessee, and of course he was a great country singer known as the King of Country Music. He was a huge star in the 30s, and he joined the Grand Ole Opry in 1938. So he was a fixture in the Grand Ole Opry for a while, and then he kind of fell out of popularity too with newer artists like Hank Williams and Ernest Tubb. They kind of took his market share away from him, but he hung around there, and he just hung around and later in life, he became a regular performer at the Grand Ole Opry again, and so he really got more acclaim at the end of his life. He's known for about 3 major songs that I can think of, and that's The Great Speckled Bird, Wabash Cannonball, and the Tennessee Waltz. He's also a great baseball player. When he was younger, and he was signed to play with the Knoxville Smokies, but of all things, he got a heat stroke, and that effectively ended his athletic career, and he got into singing more, and the rest is history. He was actually also the first living inductee into the Country Music Hall of Fame, and that happened in 1961 or 62. And anyway, he ran for governor once in 1948, and he lost decisively. He was at the time, Tennessee was just dominated by the Democratic Party, and he ran as a Republican. So his opponent got 67% of the vote, but they acted like that he actually at least put a blip on the radar for the Republican Party. And anyway, Mr. Acuff passed away in 1992 at the age of 89. Moving on to September 19th, 1925, in Hilltop, Kentucky, The young man was born by the name of Franklin, I want to say his name is Sousley. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And he was a U.S. Marine. He was one of the 6 Marines that were pictured in the Iwo Jima poster, a picture that is so famous. I mean, it's absolutely, if you've ever known anything about World War II, you've probably seen the Iwo Jima photo. But sadly, he wouldn't live to know about his fame or anything else, because just shortly after that, he was shot dead by a Japanese sniper on March 21st of 1945. So he was originally buried in Iwo Jima, but he was brought back home to Elizaville in Kentucky and given his final resting place. So definitely want to tell his story. I absolutely love knowing that a young Appalachian was part of that photos. And he passed away, like I said, he was just 19 years old when he was killed. So he gave the ultimate sacrifice. So much respect to Mr. Sousley. Moving to September 20th. In 1892, Newport, Tennessee, a man was born by the name of Kiffin Rockwell. He was the first American pilot to shoot down an enemy aircraft in World War I. And he shot down a German plane on May 18th, 1916. May 18th, 1916, yeah. I get it right. Give me about 50 chances. He was not actually in the U.S. Army, though. He joined the French Foreign Legion, which I've heard that my whole life. I didn't know it was really a thing, honestly. I didn't know people really did that. But he joined the French Foreign Legion, and he served help fighting to defend France during World War I. But unfortunately, on September 23rd, 1916, he was shot in the chest and killed instantly. And his plane crashed into some part of France. He became the second American airman to die in France. And he is buried there to this day. They also have a gravestone in Morristown, Tennessee, dedicated to him, but he's actually still buried in France, from what I understand. Moving on to September 21st, 1923 in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, a man by the name of Linwood Holton, I do believe it's A. Linwood Holton, was born. He went on to become the 61st governor of Virginia. He was a very extremely moderate Republican, and he's actually the father-in-law of Tim Kaine, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, believe it or not, a Democrat. And Holton ended up endorsing Barack Obama in 2008, so he's kind of persona non grata in the Republican Party at this point. But I actually met Linwood Holton too. When I was at Emory and Henry College, he came and spoke to my class. Pretty nice guy. But that's the story of Linwood Holton. Now, believe it or not, he's still alive. He's 97 years old, I do believe. Born in 1923. I was floored because when I saw him when he came to Emory and Henry, he was, he's no spring chick by any means. It was like, that was 30 years ago, sir. Or not that long, but 20 some years ago. So glad to know he's still with us. And finally, moving to September 21st, 1953, a man was born by the name of Bob Huggins. He was born in Morgantown, West Virginia, and he's the current head coach of West Virginia University. And he has had a lengthy career. He's been the coach of West Virginia since 2007, but he has 900 career wins, 24 NCAA career tournament appearances. He's been to the Sweet 16 9 times, the Elite 8 4 times, and made 2 Final Fours, once with Cincinnati Bearcats and once with West Virginia. And it is a crying shame, but he is not, as of yet, in the Hall of Fame for the NCAA basketball. So I don't know what happened with that. He definitely deserves it. And that's kind of a point of controversy with a lot of people, is that he absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So that's a wrap on this week, on these 2 weeks, this month. I'll see you back in October. And again, I hope you enjoyed the new format. It gives me more time to do the writing on the book. And for all our supporters, the patrons, and the people who just send in donations, your name will be in the book. I want to let you know that too. So much appreciate you guys' support and whatever we do. And we're going to do a new little video series too, so sharing some of our folklore, not necessarily just of Virginia. We'll cover the Tennessee, West Virginia, North Carolina, Kentucky, all the things we can do. So I hope you guys enjoyed that new segment, and I'll see you next month. But I'll see you before then, just not in this format. Check you later.